Do you want to ask that again, or you can just go?
It's okay, you can't just go. We won't
Okay.
have people asking it.
Okay. As a senior conflict advisor at Creative Associates, I work on a number of different initiatives. They range from helping them with the development of proposals to respond to opportunities for grants and contracts. Often we are implementing foreign assistance projects for the U.S. and European governments overseas, typically with a focus in Latin America and Africa. I've had a lot of opportunities to do really exciting and interesting things over the course of my career. And sometimes when I start to talk about it, it seems like I'm having an out-of-body experience because I feel really grateful for the experiences that I've been able to have thus far. I was deployed when I was with the State Department to a place in Myanmar, which is a country that some people are still calling Burma. And the part of the country was named Rakhine State. In Rakhine, there's an ethnic group called the Rohingya, which are Muslims, and they are a minority group of around 1.2 million that are living in Rakhine State, which is primarily Buddhist. And those two groups are really at odds with each other. The intensity of the hatred is palpable when you start to raise issues. And even if you're speaking with the Rakhine, who are the Buddhist, and mention the word Rohingya, they often will be antagonized to the point of being willing to stand up and start yelling in a very calm meeting. The intensity of that hatred was something I was never able to understand. I could feel the fear from the Buddhists, and I thought I was able to place myself in their shoes and recognize that across the region there were several countries that had previously been Buddhist and had converted to Islam. And so that made a little bit of sense to me as to why, as a religion, that might seem a little bit intimidating. But the Rohingya weren't violent. The number of homicides that were taking place in that state were lower than in the rest of the country. And still, the Rakhine felt that they needed to place the Rohingya in concentration camps to cut off all contact and engagement. And so even those who weren't in the camps and that were still in villages, they weren't able to go down roads that would pass Rakhine villages. And so there was a great deal of animosity there that I was trying to understand and figure out what that meant, because as a U.S. government representative there, I was trying to be able to wrap my head around the challenges that were taking place in that part of the country, to be able to provide recommendations to the leaders of Myanmar that were serving there, and also to our ambassador who was serving as a representative of the president in terms of setting policies from the United States, helping us understand how we might be able to shape the environment to promote the human rights conditions of the Rohingya there, and also to help Myanmar in its transition to a democratic state. The fear that the Rohingya had living in a place that had been their home for hundreds of years, that had shifted the narrative and created this division between the two groups, was just as strong as the fear that the Rakhine had. Trying to find ways to engage them and to find ways to promote tolerance was really challenging. I went to South Africa as a student, as a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar, and studied at the University of Cape Town. This program called Caterpillar that was working with middle school aged youth from 25 different communities across the Western Cape. They really spanned the racial spectrum of what South Africa called the Rainbow Nation. And the intent in engaging those youth was to be able to help them understand their path and create opportunities for them in their future. So what that meant was every weekend we would pull together a couple of representatives from these different communities, one boy and one girl, and bring them together with youth from the other communities that they'd never met before, and we would engage in a series of programs. And those programs were different every week. Sometimes they were looking at trying to understand the historical repercussions of apartheid and how that affected their families, how they thought that would affect them in the future, and things that they could do then themselves, their peer groups, their communities, to start to change that legacy. Sometimes we were doing things as simple as how how do you stand up and present yourself to a teacher or to a potential employer, and giving them some of the basic life skills that they didn't get in their really poor school systems, or figuring out ways that we could start to introduce them to basic concepts of leadership and management that they were able to then take back to their communities and share with others. That organization received several different awards. And we were also able to take that model and replicate it in a couple of other towns. And some of the youth are still in touch with some of the counselors that are my friends today. And it's been really amazing to see the way that something so little changed their life as they got exposed to people from other races for the first time. I really enjoyed that opportunity to give back part of what I was receiving. My faith has played a role in that to some extent, where I really feel like there are almost requirements for me to find ways to help improve the lives of those around me. Just as a doctor might take care of a sick patient, or a mother might take care of a child, this is my way of contributing to the world around me.